All right, so next up, let's take a look at Texas A&M versus Houston. Texas A&M, really impressive performance today, dominated Nebraska. Houston, dominant performance as expected against the 16 seed. Now, I will say before going in, these teams have played each other, which is kind of weird that I'm surprised they put these teams in the same region. But anyways, let's break it down a little bit. All right, A&M led by Wade Taylor IV. Houston led by L.J. Cryer and Jamal Shedd. Let's look at A&M's schedule a little bit. Getting hot as of late. Been kind of up and down all year. All right, 14 losses, but also some really impressive wins along the way. All right, tournament teams-wise, let's see. Losses to Florida Atlantic. All right, FAU got beat today by Northwestern. A win over Iowa State. We know what Iowa State's capable of. 2 seed this year. Really good team. Losses to Virginia. They lost to Houston by 4. All right, so that's the game I was talking about. We'll talk about that game a little more later. And then a loss to Auburn, win over Kentucky. In SEC play, win over Tennessee, win over Florida. So kind of beat a lot of the tournament teams that you are seeing in the tournament now. Lost to Alabama pretty badly, though. All right, as far as Houston is concerned, been one of the better teams all year. Them, Uconn, and Purdue really dominant all year. Tournament teams, went over Dayton, went over Texas A&M, like I said. All right, losses are to Iowa State, TCU, Kansas, and then Iowa State again in the Big 12 championship. And so they've beaten everybody else in the Big 12. Wins over Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, anybody you can name that was in the tournament for the Big 12, they've beaten. All right, so Kansas been really dominant. All right, their 2 guards in particular, Shedd, he's been here before. He's made a Final Four run before. L.J. Cryer coming over from Baylor. If A&M plays like they did today against Nebraska, A&M can give this team fits. Now, Houston defensively is all over the place. They've got a few more weapons than A&M does, I think. But I think this game's going to be pretty tight. Obviously, Houston only beat them by 4 last time, so it's probably going to be pretty tight again. And the way A&M's been playing as of late, against Nebraska in the SEC tournament leading up to the NCAA tournament, I think they can give this team some fits and maybe can beat this team. But Houston, I'm not going to judge that Iowa State loss in the Big 12 tournament. Obviously, it meant a little more to Iowa State than it did Houston. But at the end of the day, you got the same seed you're going to get regardless, and the same region, so who really cares? Houston kind of tapped out on that one, I think. So I'm not going to judge them getting pounded in that Big 12 championship. I think this game is going to be down to the wire, but I think Houston ultimately is too much. A&M is really good, I think, when hitting on all cylinders, but they've been so inconsistent all year that when you get to tournament play, you want to see consistency. That way, even if our shots aren't falling, we can still win games somehow regardless. So I think Houston is ultimately going to get the dub here just because they're, like I said, a little more consistent. I think A&M can play with anybody in the country, but when the shots aren't falling, when they are playing their worst, what's going to happen? And I think Houston ultimately is going to win this game by probably more than 10. I think it won't be much more than that. I think it'll be close to 10. I think it's going to be a game at halftime, but ultimately Houston's going to be too much and ultimately get the dub in the end because, like I said, they're just a little more consistent, obviously, judging by the records, a lot more consistent, actually, than A&M. And I think that's going to pay off here the further you get in the tournament. So give me Houston here, but don't be surprised if A&M gives them a little scare, though. Who do you think wins this game and why? Let me know down in the comment section. Make sure to like this video and, most importantly, subscribe.